Good evening and welcome to the July 16th meeting of the Larimer County Planning Commission. It's our tradition to begin each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so I'd ask everybody to please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for being with us tonight. There's copies of the agenda by the door in the folder there. We'd ask everybody to please mute their cell phones. Members of the Planning Commission are all volunteers. I'm going to ask each member to introduce themselves, starting with Commissioner Duffy.
Good evening. I'm Connor Duffy. I've been on the Planning Commission for 3 years, and I live in the Timnath area.
I'm Adam Eggleston. I've been on the Planning Commission for over a year, and I live in the southeast Fort Collins.
Hi, I'm John Weiss. I've been on the commission for a little bit over a year, and I live in Timnath.
Good evening. I'm John Slutsky. I live in southeast, that's where it is, Fort Collins, and I've been on the commission for long enough to know where I live.
Hi, my name is Nick Cassidy. I live in Fort Collins, and I've been on the Planning Commission for a year.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Sullivan, and I'm from Loveland and brand new to the Planning Commission.
My name is Lisa Cholet. I live in Wellington, Colorado, and I've been on the Planning Commission for about 2 years.
And I'm Patrick Rogan, and I live in Fort Collins, and I've been on the commission for 3.5 years. Ms. Axemaker is not here, but filling in for her is Ms. Fior. Ms. Fior, would you mind introducing the staff in attendance and providing a meeting protocol for this evening?
It would be my pleasure, Mr. Chair, and good evening, planning commissioners and members of the audience. As mentioned, I am Cassidy Fior, a principal planner here at the county, and tonight I am joined at the dais by Ryan Oswindel from our planning administrative team, Michael Whitley, senior planner, Samantha Mott, senior planner, and Christine Luckison from our county attorney's office. We're also joined by staff across the way, including Matt Lafferty, principal planner, Ashton Brodall from our health department, David Pringle from our engineering department, and we also have Scott Robinson, community development director from the town of Timnath, in the audience. Joining us online, we also have Christina Scrutchins from our planning administrative team. As mentioned, we respectfully request that all members of the public silence their electronic devices, and you can help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedure instructions, which are located on the wall next to the hearing room entrance, or if you are joining us online, they can be found posted on the website at larimer.gov/bocc/commissioners-meetings. The hearing procedures for tonight. For each discussion item tonight, we will begin with a presentation from county staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant, with time for any clarifying questions from the commissioners. There will then be an opportunity for any members of the public to address the commission with their comments on discussion matters at that time. Both the applicant and county staff will have an opportunity to respond to any questions or concerns raised during public testimony, and the commission will then ask any remaining questions of the applicant or staff before entering into deliberation and working toward a decision on the matter. During public comment, please wait to speak until recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available if needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it is uncommon. Please speak directly into the microphone so that the Zoom participants may hear you. Online attendees will be muted until they are recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise hand function on the Zoom control bar. Upon request, assisted listening devices are available for the hearing impaired. Tonight, there are 3 items on the consent agenda and 1 item on the discussion agenda. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fior. I have some brief comments about the role of the Planning Commission for the audience. The Planning Commission acts as an advisory board to the Larimer County Commissioners. We review and make recommendations on land use issues outside of town and city boundaries. Some land use decisions will also be heard by the Board of County Commissioners. We come to these meetings and hearings unbiased and listen to staff's report, public testimony, as well as information provided by the applicant. Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for location and extent reviews, as well as amendments to and approvals of the Larimer County Master Plan, sub-area plans and amendments. The planning department staff provides us with a comprehensive package of information about land use applications and plan amendments. We gain insights from the information viewpoints that you all provide, so we do appreciate your attendance and participation. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 18th meeting. And unless there's any comments, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the June 18th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
So motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Slutsky,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Minutes stand approved. The next item on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda, which we have 3 items, and I'll introduce those shortly. The consent agenda is meant to be for items that are non-controversial and routine, and these will not be discussed unless requested by a commissioner or member of the audience, and I'll call for that question to the commission and the audience shortly here to find out if anybody wants to pull something from that consent agenda. We will vote on the agenda as a whole. So again, we would vote on all 3 of those items as a whole. This allows us to focus on and spend more time with the discussion items, which we have 1 this evening. So without further ado, I'll introduce the consent agenda. So we have 3 items again. First is the Dowd subdivision and appeal. That's file number 25-land4484. The second item is amendments to the Larimer County Land Use Code. That's file number 25-code 0283. The third item on the consent calendar is the Timnath GMA Overlay Zone District, which is file number 25, zone 3774. So I'll first ask if my fellow commissioners, if any of my fellow commissioners wish to pull an item from the consent agenda. And seeing none, I will now turn to the audience, both here and also online, to find out if anybody in the audience or online would like to pull an item from the consent agenda. Again, if an item is not pulled, then we will proceed to vote on the agenda and move on to the discussion item. And to reiterate, there's no public comment if we pass the consent agenda. So now, if you want to speak on any item on the consent agenda, please let us know now. And I see nobody in the audience. Is there anybody online?
If there are any members of the public online who would like to pull one of these items, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now, please. There are no hands raised.
Okay, great. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve. I move that the Larimer County Planning Commission recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of the consent items as listed on the July 16th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing agenda, subject to the conditions of approval as set out in the staff reports, and that the Larimer County Planning Commission certifies the Larimer County zoning map and the Larimer County zoning districts map Front Range area as proposed.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Weiss,
Yes.
Slutsky,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes.
And the consent agenda stands approved. So yeah, moving quickly through our agenda this evening, the next item is our discussion item. That's the Kennedy Enclosed Storage Special Review and Appeals, and that's file number 24, zone 3655. And we have a staff presentation this evening, Mr. Whitley.
Oops, excuse me. Yes, I am Michael Whitley, Larimer County Planning Department, Senior Planner. So this is the Kennedy Enclosed Storage Special Review and Appeals. The request is special review approval for an enclosed storage facility in the AP Airport Zoning District. The request includes appeals to sections from the land use code that regard building facades, roof form, and architectural design. The applicant is Jacob Renner of, Renninger with Shamrock Buildings LLC, and the property owner is Don Kennedy of DMK Land Trust LLC. So I'd like to note just at the beginning of the presentation that there's no public opposition to this request, and staff supports both the special review and the appeals. We decided to place this item on the discussion agenda because the standards that are being appealed are standards that are fairly newly adopted. They were adopted with an amendment to the Land Use Code in 2021. They only apply in urban districts like the Airport Zoning District and in growth management areas. The vast majority of the cases that the Planning Commission reviews are not in the growth management area or in urban districts, or if they are, they tend to not involve commercial buildings and non-residential buildings like the ones that are under review tonight. So the Planning Commission's had limited exposure to these standards, and so just kind of as a, kind of an education for everyone in terms of what the standards say and what kind of things we look for, we decided to place this on the discussion agenda. So to that end, I will be fairly brief with regards to the special review portion of the presentation, focusing on the appeals. We can always, of course, circle back to any questions you may have about any element of the special review or the appeals, but that's what I'm going to really be focusing on. So the subject property is a 3.74 acre parcel at 4140 East County Road 30, Fort Collins. That's located north of County Road 30, about a third of a mile west of the I-25 frontage road. So also, this property is within the boundary of a plan called a Plan for the Region between Fort Collins and Loveland. That, as it suggests, is a plan that is applicable between the Fort Collins Growth Management Area and the Loveland Growth Management Area, which do not generally touch. So this plan encompasses that region. South of County Road 30 is in the Loveland Growth Management Area. It's also in Loveland city limits. And a significant feature in this region, the new Amazon distribution facility is due south of this property. So I'm pretty sure that most people can kind of orient to that with regards to that new building. So as I mentioned, the property is zoned AP Airport, and enclosed storage facilities are allowed in the Airport Zoning District with special review approval. Special review approval was granted for a veterinary clinic on this property in 1979. That veterinary clinic, the former veterinary clinic, is here. Also on the property is a single-family dwelling that was constructed in 2021. And there is a barn that is 2,223 square feet currently on the property. So the yellow buildings that are highlighted are existing. The enclosed storage facility consists of four new enclosed storage buildings, A, B, C, and D. Those buildings total 20,256 square feet. The property owner owns a party equipment rental business, and the materials proposed to be stored consist of rental equipment and tools to maintain that equipment. According to the applicant's project description, normal business hours would be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and 10 to 15 employees would be on site daily. Trucks and trailers associated with that business would also be stored on site. So with the special review, and again, I'm going to be very brief on this, there are criteria for special review that include an evaluation of the proposed impacts on existing and future development of the area, impacts associated with the environment, wildlife, access, traffic, parking, etc. An evaluation as to whether or not the recommendations of referral agencies have been considered and adequately addressed. A consideration of if the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and whether or not the use complies with applicable additional criteria listed in Article 3, which is use regulations. So we do find that the proposal does comply with these criteria, and we have no outstanding issues with that. And so again, we can circle back if anyone has any questions about any of these specific criteria. with a special review, we also have to find that the proposal complies with the general review criteria found in the code. That analysis can be found on pages 296 to 299. It is fairly redundant. Basically, what it says is the case has been reviewed using the applicable review criteria for the process it is going through, in this case, a special review. Also, it's consistent or compliant with the land use code. Going on, it's compliant with other applicable regulations. So any other applicable regulations, such as those adopted by the engineering department or the health department. It should be found to be compliant with prior approvals, compliant with zoning district standards, compliant with development standards, and compliant with any other code provision in the land use code that may be applicable to this request. And again, we have done a thorough review of this application. We have no outstanding concerns. There are a few very minor technical details that we are still working out, but those are very minor and do not involve the feasibility of the project. We know this can work. It's just a matter of working out some additional, kind of details with regards to water lines and drainage and such, but not at the level of does it work? It's just like fine level detail. So the appeals, again, this is a section of the code, section 4.9, that contains architectural standards only applicable in urban zoning districts and in growth management areas. And as stated in the land use code with regards to intent, the architectural standards found in section 4.9 of the land use code are intended to promote high quality design and are intended to protect and enhance the visual interest, character, and quality of non-residential and mixed use areas and ensure compatibility between residential neighborhoods and adjacent commercial and mixed use areas. The specific standards that are being appealed. One is section 493C2, which deals with building facades. And it basically says that facades greater than 100 feet should incorporate projections and recesses at least 3% length of the facade that are equivalent to the depth of at least 3% of the length of the facade and extend at least 20% of the length of the facade. And it also requires that no uninterrupted facades be longer than 100 feet. So 3 of the buildings are longer than 100 feet. None of them have facades that are uninterrupted, but they also don't project and recess as called for in the code. But as a trade-off, and we will go through the architectural, kind of elevations again fairly quickly. Each building does have openings, changes in materials, changes in color, and there's added visual interest and character with the buildings with added features that were not part of the original proposal. What we started with the first submittal for this project were 2 buildings initially that changed to 4, but were very much plain metal buildings. And so it did take quite a bit of review to get the elevations to where they are, which staff feels is consistent with the code, although it doesn't meet kind of fine level detail again of the nitty gritty of the standards. Next, section 493C3, ground floor facades that face public streets shall have arcades, display windows, entry areas, awnings, and other features at least 60% of their horizontal length. So again, 3 of the buildings have facades that face public buildings. They all have features, awnings, entry features, windows, etc., but none of them have features that cover 60% of that facade. In the staff report, there's additional detail, but on the PowerPoint, I note that for building A, there's a mitigation by existing and proposed landscaping between the facade and East County Road 30. For B, the facade visibility is reduced by fencing, landscaping, and the building's 240-foot setback from the front property line. And for building D, which is on the north end of the property, the facade is reduced by fencing and the building setback of approximately 470 feet from the front property line. With regards to roof form, there's a lot of language in there, but I highlighted. Generally, the intent is for buildings to have roofs that are basically not large scale, flat, and kind of without change in plane. So we have several standards, and the roofs are intended to, or supposed to meet, 2 of the 4 standards. One relates to flat roofs that's not applicable to this request. There's a standard with regards to overhanging eaves. There's roof slope, which calls for a certain pitch of roof. And then there is change in the roof planes. And so these building roofs do not comply with the pitch, but just barely. So the roofs have 3.5 feet of vertical rise for every 12 feet of run, and it would need to be 4 feet in vertical rise for every 12 feet of run to comply with the standard. So really, it's not a change that was likely going to be visibly perceptible, from the public. These are sloped roofs. They just don't quite have the slope that is called for in the code. And they don't have a change in slope planes, but the applicant did add cupolas and dormers to several of the buildings, actually all of the buildings, that do add visual interest to the roof. And finally, section 493F1, architectural design. That standard says all sides of all buildings shall include materials and design characteristics consistent with those on the front. Use of inferior or lesser quality materials for side and rear facades shall be prohibited. Now, in this case, actually, the materials are identical on the back of the buildings as they are on the front. It's just a matter of the number of architectural features and the level of visual interest. The backs of buildings do tend to be, kind of more plain than the fronts. And so that is part of this request and appeal to that standard. So we'll go through the architectural elevations fairly quickly again. So we've got elevations for all 4 of the buildings. Building A is 5,760 square feet. And you can see it has been fairly well enhanced, especially the facade that is the front that faces interior to the building. This is a 3D version of that, showing what it looks like kind of with a 3D view. Building B is proposed to be 6,000 square feet, a little bit larger, overhead doors in the front that face interior. This is the facade that faces south to County Road 30. 3D view. Building C is 4,896 square feet, fewer overhead doors, but they do have, these features and some covered entries that add some visual interest. These facades are not really visible because of the placement of buildings on the property, and you'll see that when I show the landscape plan in just a minute. 3D view of Building C. Building D, 3,600 square feet. This is on the far northern edge of the property. This is the one with the most overhead doors. So there's limited opportunity for additional architectural features on that facade that faces south, but it does have columns and roof elements that add some visual interest. Again, a 3D view. So this is the landscape plan, which can be found as attachment C, I believe, in your report, and you can see that there is quite a bit of proposed landscaping. There is quite a bit of existing landscaping. There are mature trees adjacent to East County Road 30. So that does buffer these buildings. There is some new landscaping on the south sides of many of these buildings. This is actually the building that has the most architectural interest. That faces south to County Road 30. This is the end of Building C, but you can see there's it's not visible from streets. And then, again, landscaping to the north. So the appeal criteria can be found on pages 299 to 301. And to approve an appeal, the Board of County Commissioners has to find that approval of the appeal would not subvert the purpose of the standard or requirement, that approval of the appeals would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or property values in the neighborhood. Approval of the appeals is the minimum action necessary. Approval of the appeals will not result in increased costs of the general public, and approval of the appeals is consistent with the intent and purpose of the code. And so staff's analysis is that it does comply with those review criteria. We do have findings in the staff report. So the Development Services team does find that the Kennedy Enclosed Storage Special Review, File 24 Zone 3655, complies with the special review criteria found in Section 642D of the Land Use Code and complies with the general review criteria found in Section 638D of the Land Use Code. And regarding the appeals, the Development Services team finds that the appeals comply with the appeal review criteria found in Section 672B5 of the Land Use Code. We do have a recommendation of approval subject to 9 conditions found on pages 303 and 304 of the Planning Commission report and packet, and we do have 2 recommended suggested motions. So that's an overview of the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, yeah. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Whitley. Any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. And you may not be able to answer these, and then the applicant maybe have this. From what I gather, all the new buildings are metal. Is that correct? They're all metal buildings?
That is correct.
Do we have any architectural or other kinds of things that show us the buildings with the landscaping in place?
We do not have 3D renderings that include landscaping, but that was the intent of including the landscape plan. So we don't have a photo sim or a SketchUp that I'm aware of. Actually, the applicant may have something, but I would think that if he had it, he would have provided it. But we do not have that, no.
Okay, so I guess it's a technical question. When you're using landscaping as an alternative mitigation, generally speaking, when you put landscaping in, it's rather small and it takes time to grow.
Correct.
Is there something I didn't see it, but is there something there that says the landscaping has to be a certain size? Because we don't want to start with 1-gallon plants that take 15 years to grow. So in that interim, you see the buildings when the landscaping is really not offsetting it.
Yes, I agree. And so we do have minimum for trees, it's minimum calipers. And for shrubs, it is minimum gallon sizes. And they are fairly small to begin. Yes, that is true. Planning and development is the long game. The intent is that as time goes on, these landscape elements do get bigger. If anything dies, it does have to be replaced. The intent really, it's not intended to completely hide the buildings, but in the long term, it is intended to kind of break up the facades of buildings. So from staff's analysis, the proposal, both with the architecture proposed in combination with distances from property lines, especially towards County Road 30, and the addition of landscaping, our analysis is that it does comply with our standards.
Okay. I'll let the applicant, because I don't agree with you on that and the staff's suggestion, so I'll let the applicant come back and address that later. The colors that I saw on the renderings, is that the actual color? I noticed there was a color palette to the side, but I wanted to know if the colors that we see and that you showed are the actual colors, give or take.
I will let the applicant verify, but in general, so what we review becomes part of the record, and what is constructed needs to be consistent with what is presented with the case. So we do have the ability to vary colors at the request of the applicant, but the intent is to have multiple colors, for example, and multiple textures and kind of things that offset the building. So if they wanted to deviate from the colors, we could approve that, just with the idea of providing some contrast.
Okay, so, and then my question, I want to be sure I understand, which buildings would be visible from any public roadways or, say, the Amazon parking lot, if you will?
Okay, so actually I do have some street views, but so it might be best to go back to the original site plan that has these. So there is some fencing. The most prominent building in terms of closest and widest facade is Building A. Next would be building B. That, again, has the elevation that has the most interest, and I can flip back to those if you'd like. And then probably the next is building D, which is long, but it's on the north end of the property with a setback of approximately 470 feet. Now, in terms of street view, I do have, I'm gonna have to get out my presentation. Actually, I do have a street view of this property pulled up from Google. Now, unfortunately, there's a large truck, but you can see, so this is the vet building right here. All the new buildings are going to be behind this building. And they'll be visible, from County Road 30, but I wouldn't say that they will stick out too much. So building B, for example, will be here behind this fence, and this fence is a good distance away from the county road. I think this setback is something like 240 feet. There is some existing landscaping. To give you some context, actually, in terms of architecture, I also have some slides that did not include in my main presentation, but I have them kind of at the ready. So the property to the east is owned by the city of Fort Collins. It is a natural area. And this is the building that is on that property. So you can kind of see that the closest property to the east has a fairly plain facade. And this is the facade that faces the subject property. If you go to the west, it is a residential property with a fairly large detached building, but it's all metal, has some openings, it has some changes in roof line, but really this is going to be facing the new enclosed storage facility. So it's going to be, kind of metal building to metal building. When you go to Amazon, this is the view of Amazon from I-25. It is a very large building, reportedly 3.5 million square feet on 4 levels, fairly plain, flat roof. This is the view of Amazon from County Road 30, basically across, kind of from this subject property. So, one of the things that we looked at when evaluating the architecture is how does it fit in with the area? And that's one of the stated intents of the code. Is this consistent with the area? Does it enhance the quality of the area? There are other large metal buildings in this vicinity south of County Road 30, which again is in city limits of Loveland. And so, the scale of these buildings is much smaller than most of the commercial buildings in the area, mostly south of County Road 30. And from staff's perspective, at least, they have more architectural interest than the existing commercial buildings south of County Road 30, which actually, being in the city limits of Loveland, are subject to different standards. I don't know what those standards are, but it seems that, again, from staff's perspective, what is proposed is consistent with the area.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Lee.
Hi. So first question, I'm assuming these are post-frame buildings, yes?
I would have the applicant address that.
I figured. Okay. So just an area I happen to be very familiar with. So I kind of guessed. So to the point of the standards for appeal and all of that, my question would be on the roof pitch. And I know it's kind of a nitpicky thing, but what is the purpose of the land use code stipulating a 412 pitch?
I didn't get into the details of, kind of why a 412 pitch. I just know that that's in the code. I also know that, I've been with Larimer County for a little more than 17 years. These standards have been in place since 2001. This is the third case that I've dealt with that actually involves architectural standards, so it's not something that comes up very often. I imagine that it relates to visual interest, and these are slightly more shallow than what would comply with the standard in terms of that one element. And again, with roof form, there are 4 elements listed, and to comply with the standard, it needs to meet 2 of the 4.
So is there some reason why it can't be 412 in this particular instance?
You know, I did point out to the applicant during the review that the standard was, you know, kind of 412. This just barely doesn't meet the standard. Ideally, you know, and we talked, you know, about, as with anything, the preferred alternative is meeting the standard. The second alternative is appealing it and providing a good justification. The justification that was written into the project description that staff happens to agree with is that the difference is really not going to be perceptible from the average person kind of going along County Road 30, which is an minor arterial, I believe. You know, I don't think the roof pitch is going to be, someone's going to look at it and say, oh, that's a shallow roof pitch.
I get that,
Yeah.
right? But I also think, like, if there's a compelling reason, I don't feel like there's a compelling reason. More, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, you know, a term that we used to use is arbitrary but excellent. So the standard was selected. It is somewhat arbitrary. It is just the standard that we happen to select. That is not to say that that is the gold standard. That is just what is in the code.
And so it's not like a height restriction problem or something of that nature.
It is not.
Okay, so choice on the exterior finishes. Can you tell me what the finish is that creates the vertical striping on the exterior?
So the gentleman with Shamrock.
I can reserve that for him.
Here. Yeah, I do. It's an architectural element that is metal, but I'll let him elaborate on that.
Okay, I'll reserve the rest of my questions for him.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Any other questions before we get the applicant up for presentation and questions? Okay, seeing none. Does the applicant have a presentation, or do they want to just come up for questions?
For questions?
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah, step forward and introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Jacob Renninger, the owner of Shamrock Goods.
Great. And you're the contractor in this situation, is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah, great. Yeah, if we want to just start with Commissioner Chalet's question.
Sorry, I'll just apologize ahead of time. Sometimes you know too much, right? So my question is, so what is the material that's creating the vertical striping?
It's a textured panel, so it's the same profile as the rest of the building, but it has that texture to it, almost like a really gritty sandpaper.
So just, it's still metal,
It's
right?
metal, yeah.
Did you consider using a different material than metal to create some variation to meet the standard for the exterior?
If we absolutely needed to, yeah, we should.
Right? Like, you can do something different on the lower part than on the higher part, right? And there's options of material besides metal to maybe not make it look quite so much like a metal building that lacks some of the other variations that are architecturally pleasing.
Yes, certainly. We're trying to do everything we can to keep costs down this building. Everything, of course, is going over budget in this day and age.
So some of it is trying to create an affordable business building. Am I right?
Correct.
Which Post Frame is really good for that.
That was the
And I'm a huge fan, so I don't want you to think I'm not.
Okay.
I would encourage, we'll see how this goes, but I would encourage you to consider maybe creating a little bit more visually pleasing there's a zillion different options now. Certainly there's got to be something out there that's somewhat affordable to create something so it doesn't quite look like a metal building. And did you consider doing the varying roof line, or is that again like a kind of a cost?
It definitely comes down to cost.
Okay.
It's the most cost efficient design we could come up with. And
To me, that's a compelling argument. So
Okay.
with everything being as expensive as it is right now. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. So the question that was asked of staff, but they deferred to you, was why not a pitch of the roof via code? Is it just purely dollars?
Yes, sir. The truth be told, this building's been manufactured for quite a while, waiting for approval. So the components have already been manufactured, built, sitting in the yard ready.
Okay, so I asked the question, and you can confirm or whatever, but is the color we see in the renderings the proposed color that you're...
Yeah, it looks very close.
So is that like a blue-gray? Is that what we're looking at?
Charcoal.
charcoal.
Charcoal on the roof and light gray on the walls.
And I noticed that some of the doors appear to be different colors. Is that intentional, or
No,
you-
it's just
they'll all be
clicks in
the same
software.
color?
Yeah, they all match.
Okay. And then on the landscape plan, is the whatever fencing, is the fencing solid, or what kind of fencing at
It's-
all?
Yeah, it confirmed.
It's probably everything from the street is solid, and the entire and along this neighbor's the neighbor that you saw in that picture just before, it's solid about 50% of the way between my property and his property. The rest of it is if you look to the right, that fence that's going along the right of that picture.
Sir, would you mind actually, could you just step forward to the microphone so we can, yeah.
The fencing. That's,
And don't, if you don't mind introducing yourself too.
hi,
please.
I'm Don. I'm the property owner.
Great, thank you.
So that fencing along the side, it was a chain link that we went ahead and put a barrier on it. It's a black barrier. Basically looks the same color as the solid fence. It's very difficult to see through. Like you really almost can't see through it at all. And the entire property all the way around is basically covered with that. So it's either solid or screened. So, and then, I mean, I can come back in a second.
No,
Questions for
if you can,
Or
I
speak
have
to-
one other, I have
I
a
can-
couple
I
other
can-
questions. So from a landscaping, this, you obviously have figured out that it's important to me. So from a landscaping, using these pictures, I guess, which is a good thing, can you indicate roughly what might stay from a landscaping perspective and what is either going to be removed or what?
Okay. So I guess
Back
the first
to-
thing,
yeah.
the first thing that I want to tell you, just as a group in whole, the aesthetic view of this property to me is paramount. It's extremely important to me. I'm very much a perfectionist. My wife is a perfectionist. We want this property to stand out from its beauty, and landscaping is a huge part of that. If we could go back to maybe one of the other pictures. Boy, that's a long time ago. Wow. Even this picture, if you look, I mean, you could go back to even the plan view, not even a picture.
Oh, you're looking for the.
Just that one, yeah. So the building, the first building that is behind the old vet clinic, we've concluded that we're going to put a number of trees in front of it. It's this one over here. Would that be building A?
Yes.
We're going to put trees in front of that, but we also concluded that between the trees and doing the aesthetic changes to the front to, make it look presentable, that the combination could get it done. It's also very difficult, and it probably doesn't necessarily show in maybe even the street view, but if you really take about 2/3 of that property angle looking at that side of that building, you can't see it. And ironically, there is a few very mature trees along the street that make it very difficult to see the end of that building already. My intentions are to put a couple more trees. Like if you look, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees on the outside of the fence line. A couple of them are big, and then the landscape plan was to put a couple more out there as well, so that basically from the street you almost can't see in at all already. And then our thoughts were add landscaping to in front of those inside of the property, and do the increased, the facades and stuff like that to make that building look as good as possible. And the truth is, it's going to be very difficult to see it from the street. The second building that you could see from the street is the one that's set back quite a ways. I think that's building B. And there's landscaping along the side of the property. Again, in the front of the property, there's a huge pine tree. I don't know if any of you have been past, the old vet clinic. There's a huge pine tree there. There's the 6-foot fence that, makes it, difficult to see. And then I believe we have some parking there, so we don't have as much landscaping directly in front of that building. But then, like Michael had said, that setback is almost 300 feet from the street. and then we did kind of conclude that if we did put, some architectural features on the side of that building, that it could make that building look pretty presentable from the street. I mean, as presentable as we felt like we could. So I understand the landscaping, because I want the entire property from 360 to be. I mean, it's a big property, so there's going to be a lot of landscaping, and it's going to look amazing. And I've been doing, some small landscaping things to the areas around the original house, just some slight stuff here and there, just with the thoughts that before we even got into this project, deep into this special review project. But I do believe that between me and my neighbor, between the landscaping that I plan to do to complement his landscaping, we're going to have a very distinctive barrier between our properties. There's no residence behind me or to the east other than the city of Fort Collins, and how whatever they just do with their property is kind of the city of Fort Collins. Some days I think it's horrible to look at, and some days I'm like, well, they took care of it this week. But I still want to make it look great, because it's important to me. But from the front of this property, I do believe that from a landscaping perspective, there are current trees and trees that are part of the landscaping plan I think it's going to look really nice from the street. I really do. And then couple that together with the things that we've changed from making a complete boring side of a building, which I completely agree with. Adding some color, some overhangs, and some doors to. I think the sides of the buildings that you will see are going to look. I don't think they'll look bad.
Great. I have one trivial question to staff. Do we have a number of trips that this company will generate on that road?
I do know that what the project description indicates is there would be 10 to 15 employees coming and going from the property on a daily basis, or on the property on a daily basis. I would defer to the engineering department with regards to the exact number of trips. I don't recall, but David probably knows. Actually, let me look. Actually, I believe, and David can correct me if I'm wrong, it comes out to 11 trips per day on average.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant while we still have them up here?
Thank you.
None. Okay. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. Sorry, Commissioner Slutsky.
You said it goes up 11 trips per day, increases, is that?
That is what I put in the staff report after consulting with the engineering department, yes.
Okay, so if there's 15 employees, that's 30 trips.
So it might be averaged, so average daily trips. So this is a Monday through Friday operation. It's averaged over 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if David's actually looking at that right now, but he is looking at it right now. But I do remember confirming with the engineering department that this was the average number of daily trips per the traffic information that was provided and verified by the engineering department, or at least reviewed by the engineering department and accepted.
Mm-hmm.
David?
I'm looking through the documents right now. Can you give me a second?
Yeah, we'll give you a chance for that, and then if there's no other questions for the applicant, we'll let those guys sit down for now too. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that presentation. That was really helpful.
All right, great.
So we'll now go ahead and open the public hearing and take public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to give testimony or comment? And same question online. Anyone in the room? Seeing none in the room. Anyone online?
If there are any members of the public online who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. There are no hands raised.
Okay, so with that, we will go ahead and now close the public hearing portion of the meeting. And we can now, if there's questions for staff, we can, if you're ready, Mr. Pringle, yeah.
So we didn't require a intermediate traffic study, so we're not 100% sure on the traffic impacts. However, the reason we waived that is because Loveland owns that road, and Loveland waived that requirement on not our behalf, but they were in support of waiving that requirement. So then we aligned with Loveland with also waiving the traffic impact study.
Fair enough. Okay, so we deferred to Loveland on that issue and nothing there. Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah. We'll now move into discussion, deliberation, comments. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Chalet.
So, first, thank you for answering my questions, as technical as they might have been. And typically, I'm kind of a hardliner on certain land use codes, depending on what the purpose is, right? But I would commend you on this project in working within the boundaries of what you already had, understanding the cost restrictions and the time to manufacture and locking in those prices. And it's a complicated building industry from the construction side. And so to me, that's a compelling reason to be willing to overlook the pitch. And I think that you've made really good efforts to make the facade appealing, given the restrictions that you have right now. So with that said, and I think 11 trips a day or whatever it is minimal next to an Amazon facility that's over 3 million square feet, just for the record. So I will fully support it. And I think that that's a move to show that at the end of the day, you guys made best efforts. And I wish you the best of luck in your business and have fun building those buildings.
Yeah, I'll just add my comments now. Likewise, I'm very much in support of this. I think it's a very attractive project, particularly for the area. It's in the airport zoning district, which is, a mix of uses and industrial. And I think it's very attractive, and I agree with staff's judgment on that. And I'm in support of it. So thank you. Commissioner Weiss.
Thank you. I want to clarify one thing that I mentioned, and because I indicated that I somewhat disagree with staff's evaluation of landscaping and using it as a mitigation. And while I understand landscaping can be a mitigating situation, the problem that I often see, or that I have seen in the past, is that the landscaping is small, just like I pointed out. It starts tiny, and maybe after 10 years it grows. That's assuming that the business maintains the landscaping, which is often a question. Keeps it growing and doesn't replaces things that die and things like that. And I've seen examples where it's positive, and I've seen many examples when it's negative. They don't. They let landscaping go to pot. They don't replace things, and the place actually begins to run down. And that's a real concern I have with trying to use basic landscaping as a mitigation. The other issue is the pitch. Pitch is really not a thing. I guess the only complaint I have is that if the code says it's one thing, I haven't heard anything other than cost. And I'm sorry, cost does not justify changing things purely on cost. If they could say it's the only way architecturally or design wise that they can do this, that I think adds a little more power to that argument. But purely because I can save X amount of dollars, for me, is just not that great of excuse. So either we hold the standard to what we have or we change the standard. But going back and forth, to me, anybody who comes in, they don't know what's accurate or what can I use or what can I get away with. I realize it's in the location. I'm not worried about trips, obviously, with Amazon potentially there. But I asked the question because I was curious. But from a design, and I've done a lot of design reviewing over time, I think it could have been a lot more. I think with what's out there now in today's, there could have been a lot more to make it not look quite like nothing but a metal building that seems to be all kind of like one color with a little bit of red splashed on the roof. So those are just my comments. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do, but I do have some basic concerns along those lines. I don't really see where they've met the criteria for their appeals. Thank you.
Yeah, any other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Slutsky?
Well, I intend to support this. I think you guys have done your due diligence as well as the county. And this is a commercial building in pretty much a commercial area. It's near an airport and a major Amazon building. I don't understand my colleagues' focus on color. Sorry, I'm just a guy. It's a commercial building, and I think it'll if you take care of it, it'll be great. If you don't, the color isn't going to matter. And as far as the pitch, if it passes engineering, I think I'm okay with that. So I'm happy to support it.
Commissioner Cassidy?
I'm happy to chime in here. I think I am in support of the project. I do agree with John Weiss in the fact that I want to uphold the standards. If the building code is 4 for 12, I think it should be upheld. I don't know if there's an engineering region, whether that's structural, precipitation, snowpack, or any of those items of why we have 4 for 12. But I do think that it is important to uphold the code of, for whatever reason it is. If it's simply visual, I do want to say I also am not as concerned about the visual side of it, but I am in support of the project. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Sullivan?
And this may be a question for staff to help me through on this one, but is per the plans, that landscaping that is going to be required if it's in the plans, correct?
Correct.
So again, I think it's commendable, but I'm also slightly concerned with the amount of water you may use for all that landscaping. And as long as we know that they're going to stick to that, I just don't want you in a couple of years to all of a sudden say, I don't want to provide water for all these and start ripping them out or letting them die. So that's the only major concern I have. But it sounds like we've got checks and balances in place for that.
Yes, and for what it's worth, we do have a requirement that if any landscaping that's part of an approved landscape plan dies, it is required to be replaced.
Great. And then the other piece is that, again, I think it's a great location for it. So many times we see people building around the airports, and what do they turn around and do? They start to complain because it keeps them up at night, or their evenings on the patio aren't as great as they thought it would be. So I think that's an excellent location for your facility.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. And I was just going to add just a couple more comments on the roof, just from what I heard. Based on the discussion, it sounds like that the roof is an architectural kind of design standard, so it's not a building code issue in terms of like a weight that would come separately and elsewhere. And I think we heard that it's a negligible difference that is probably imperceptible from other people, and that the county doesn't know why they originally established that standard. So I'm perfectly happy with us accepting kind of what has been proposed here. So. And I'd also just say I also agree with Commissioner Slutsky in terms of the color. I feel like that's probably not really a planning criteria. I think it's perfectly. I really appreciate the compromise that was struck by staff and the applicant. And I commend both for kind of reaching this compromise. And I think again, from my standpoint, it's a really attractive building. So, thank you. And if there's any other comments, you take those now. Otherwise, certainly entertain a motion. So we've closed the applicant portion for now, but yeah.
I just was going to rebuttal the conversation that they had.
And you'll have another opportunity when this comes to the Board of Commissioners as well. So.
I move that the Planning Commission recommends that the Board of County Commissioners approve the Kennedy Enclosed Storage Special Review, file number 24, Zone 3655, subject to the conditions as outlined above. And I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the appeals to Section 4.9.3.C.2 and 3 building facades, comma, 4.9.3.E roof form, comma, and 4.9.3.F architectural design of the land use code.
I second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Eggleston,
Yes.
Weiss,
No.
Slutsky,
Yes.
Cassidy,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Cholet.
Yes.
Motion carries. So, any reports from staff?
There are no other reports from staff.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, and we stand adjourned.